The Ring of Dame Thardwine. Book 9. The islands yearn for high Teloch's return. Hope lights on hearts but rarely, for in the common day men surrender themselves to common feeling and forget the beauty of the sun blazon in the sky, the green grass fields waving in the breeze, flowers bringing forth their fruit, or the chorus of life which does ever greet the coming of dawn. Even the snow which lays heavy on the fields gives rest to the earth that it might prepare for the sun reveal of next spring. These small wonders he forgets to celebrate as each day builds on the last, and the cycles of the sun go unnoticed. Rainfall becomes a burden and thunder a terror. But in the rare moments he will look up from the mud he claims and give himself to wonder. Such are those days when hope beats in the breast and men begin again to dream of tomorrow, wreathed in the light of victory, and with this before their eyes they give themselves to great feasts, without knowing the touch of fear. Aethelwald walked Shirday and the guard Ioland many miles from the burning hall, until, as the sun set over the isle in the last hours of that dark day, he was confident in their safety. Then he spoke to them. "Far have you gone this day, from darkest fear and loss to a place far removed, one, no doubt, of grief. You will think in coming hours how the house of your father and your lord did suffer in final defeat, humiliated and broken. You will think of the lives there lost and the horror which man brings upon himself. These feelings are not wrong, but there remains work to be done by you if the wee Agla are to rise above this new condition. Your father came near to reforging the Tela and returning some peace to them. You can finish his works. Go first to families, till for them their fields, thatch their roofs, raise their mounds. Go then to the tribes, remind them of their kinship, teach them the power of their blood, show them that a tomorrow will come. These are the ingots which, when heated, can be hammered into a Tela, and when quenched, you will hold a strong sword. Use it only for right purposes. Wonder not of my name. It is no great mystery. When I remove my helm, you will know this face. I was called Orhan of the Ungol when I first walked in your home. But it is true that I am properly called Aethelwald of the Uncoltabar, son of a good man and brother to a fool. His deeds were terrible, and many men died for his greed. Men who should have lived and tended their fields in long years of peace. He received his justice, though far too many felt this also. Let this feud and fear die. You were offered to me for my labor, but I cannot take you from your home as my blood had done before, not when you did not choose me, not when I came into your home in guise, not when I loved another. Here I leave you. Hide yourselves for a time, but do not give in to your condition, and look ever to the dawn. She will sustain you. I cannot do labor beside you, for I serve a greater Teloch. The forest calls after me. I will not leave her waiting." He removed his helm, and they saw the face of Orhan, commanding and stern. Yet there was a second face beneath the grime and blood, one sorrowful and kind, hidden in secret chambers of his eyes. This was Aethelwald, and the pair wondered how they did not see this man when he sat in the highest mead bench in the hall. He raised his sword in salute, then turned and left them to their labor as he went to his rest. He followed the grasses to the trees, the rivers to the streams, the twilight to the setting sun, and as the last ray of that red day cut through the leaves and danced on the water, he found her. She stood beneath tall trees, their branches laden with fruits unnatural to them. Flowers had grown and still grew over the earth, and wrapped around trees until they towered over him. The last light was caught by her golden hair, and held there even as the sun left the sky. Her dress of pure white covered her as fresh fallen snow under moonlight, gentle, radiant, calm. She asked the earth to move, and it did, forming a deep basin of stone, and above it another, shallow with a lip overhanging the other. She asked the sky to bring her water, and it did. In sudden downpour of sweet water the wide, shallow pool was filled, the clearing untouched by the rain. The waters began falling over the lip to fill the basin below. She asked the stars for their light, and they gave, clearing away the clouds she had summoned, that they might shine brighter than they had ever before. The moon doubled her splendor, but shone so as not to obscure others by her brilliance. She asked for Aethelwald, and he came. His shield fell from his arm, his helm from his face, his sheath from his waist, his sword from his fingers, his armor from his shoulders, his boots from his feet, his tunic after them. His trophies lay forgotten, and he waded into the basin as she stood at the banks. He found the water warm and lost himself in it, respite from that long, terrible day. She gathered his things and placed them at water's edge before she walked in after him, and she placed her hands upon his weary muscles and began to bathe him, washing away the blood and dirt and soot from him, holding him as he wept at the day's deeds. Under her he felt his fatigue fade as she pulled from his muscles their pain. The stars shined on undimmed as the moon waxed in her beauty. The night whispered softly, the water made music as it fell, the flowers perfumed the air as the branches of the trees danced in the slight breath of the wind. Each passing moment brought the island contentment. Long they held each other, and all the world ceased to be, but they themselves. All life lived in the beating of joined hearts. All joy, wonder, and love lived in their eyes. Long they lived complete in the other. The sun rose to find them embraced in the pool. Pain and weariness had long left them, and they watched dawn's charge over the sky as birds began their songs anew. And though they desired to remain so embraced, they knew the hours were wanting. She broke from him, washing his armor as he prepared a meal for her, and as they labored, they thought of their joy and that part of themselves which was in the other. He was the first to break the silence which had held through the night. Well did you speak, as though gifted with prophecy, that yesterday was fated to be a day of bloodshed. It's like I have not seen in many years. Cruel, vicious men who thought themselves owed a prize for their treachery laid low the household of him that had long guarded them, the king chosen to rule their blood. They savaged that home, ending lives which had many years left in them, and would have taken 4 women into ignominious slavery to suffer daily torture. I went there, beneath the wings of your grace, to the home of a man to whom I had given much, yet my time in service to him earned me no mercy. That when I refused an ill-given prize, he butchered those people I held dearest. I went there to prevent a tragedy, but it was wrought before I came. And as I walked those halls where before I had stood so often, I felt a rage come over me, a tempest in my heart, and I began to wonder if the tragedy was finished or if it required one final act for its completion, if my hand was to be the author of that final act of death. I knew not what my hand would do should I discover him still living. When I discovered them, alone and dying, it all left me in an instant as I felt the pain which dwelled on the other side of the door. That was a victory. My rage, my pain, my loss, they were mine and would not consume me. Then I learned what laid them so low, and again was moved to pity, resolving myself to their defence. I went to the doors of the hall, and there waited for the return of men so vile that they would break guest right. I waited, and when they came I named them craven traitors to the common laws of men, and the day's bloody work began. There was a power in me, unconquerable, and each which came against me I felled with strokes that could have fallen a tree. Their strikes seemed slow and graceless, easy for me to avoid, as others stopped before touching my armor, stayed by a voice which would let no harm befall me. My sword moved as the wasp. Its pattern through the air was not fixed, but instead danced as it stung my foes. Their blood stained me. I felt that power to be greater than that which does live in my muscles, and I knew from where it had come to me. Illulean Finnewan, you safeguarded me against bandits and thieves, murderers and traitors, just as the true Teloch of the Eolish must do. I felt you with me, and rejoiced at feeling you so near me. Yesterday was fated to be a day of hardship for many, but with you guiding me, I could save those few lives which could be saved, and avenged those lives lost to men who had forgotten the laws of our people. Those shipmen who walk our shores are under some strange fate, and act as a sword in the hand of some hidden evil. Yet they too bowed before your might. The blood day is over, and now again I would ask you to take the ring of good fortune, which before sat upon the hand of your father, and which fate has decreed may only rest on your hand. Take it, and take your seat appointed, that from this day forward there need be no more blood days, and the far-sailing ships which come to our shore might be turned away, and the Teloch can begin their slow walk to peace. Armor cleaned, sword honed, she rose from the waters with his equipment prepared for him, and laid it in the grasses before she sat beside him, and answered, I am gifted with no prophecy. My eyes can only see the lands of the Eolish as I walk it. The fields and streams of tomorrow I cannot know. What tragedy it is that I spoke true yesterday, and lives were lost at all. Glad am I that you could bring some little rest to weary lives, that they suffered not in the hands of their foe, but died unconquered. It was your speed, only bolstered by mine, that brought you here. It was your might, only bolstered by mine, which laid low so many foes. Yet even distant I worried for you, and so asked all of Ioland for their solemn oath that they would not harm you. Eolish iron would not touch you. The hafts of darts and arrows flee from you, the feathers steering far from its course. Those lives of rage and want took from those they owed their fortune, taking but unable to create. Right was it for you to stand against them. When you battled the captain from far lands of ice and mountains, I worried, for his iron was dug from distant hills and owed me no fealty. But you did not stumble. Carefully you defeated his every thrust without ever resorting to the sword in your hand. The power which I gave you was used in restraint, when its fullness would have ended in your swift victory. I felt your heart as you walked the hall, and never did I doubt its goodness, nor did I wonder that your arm would seek revenge when it was made to just works only. This I can see as clearly as you stand before me. Do not doubt the righteousness of your arm. It has not been used for wrong ends. Long may the Eolish slumber safely when it is used in their defense. If I am destined to be Teloch of the Eolish, then I would have you by my side, a hand destined only to good works. You seem awed that I would give much of my power to safeguarding you. Do not be amazed, for your heart is most precious to me. Its beating in my ears I hold above all the wonders of the earth, a treasure beyond all which the world before made in her vast bosom. Wonder no more that I guard you by that which I was given. I gave you my love freely, without keeping any from you. I will use it thusly in all remaining moments of my life. I do not wish to be parted from you. The ring of Malach King, of all gifts best given. You hold in your hand outstretched that gift to which I am bound by my birth. I would rather have your hand than the ring it holds. Your hand is a promise of a life which I am desirous to live. The ring is a relic of a painful time, of misplaced oaths and the fatal stirring of greed in men's hearts. The ring can only come to rest upon my hand, but I am afraid to place it there, afraid to take the place of my father in the hearts of men. Hold it for me a while longer, that I may prepare myself to receive it. Fear not its curses, so long as your heart follows the same course. She closed his hand and held it to his heart, and he accepted his burden was to carry the marking of the high Teloch of the Eolish until such time as she was ready to take her proper place. He asked where they would go, and she answered that if it be her fate to stand above all others, then they must prepare her for the task. They left the basin of cold water and the woods where they had rested, for which it is still named, heading to those places where she could claim the kingship, first to the hall of Hala. Aethelwald trembled as they entered the barrow mist, for the ghosts there remained enraged at the treachery of their murder, a crime which the Eolish shared as a black spot resting on their hearts. Yet as they walked between the many mounds, giving each its proper birth, he saw no wights, as the mist swirled from them, as though they were a coming gale. He knew that this came from her. Above them was the sun in her place, the sky and the birds. Fog would not hide these from Illulean. The earth celebrated her every footfall with flowers and sprigs of grass, budding, blossoming, blooming of the seeds which had long laid dormant. Long they walked together through the fog, but they were ever in the light, and in the shadow of her power his fears were assuaged. A long shadow loomed against the fog, the body of some defeated giant, and she gazed up at it for a time, standing in grim remembrance before turning with a sigh to climb the mound opposite. Aethelwald hesitated, for the Eolish had long held taboo walking upon burial mounds. Terrible were the fates of men who disgraced the dead, but at length he followed after her, keeping faith that her power protected from the cursing magic of the Baith. She stood upon the summit of the mound, and the fog was dispelled as though by a wind the skin could not feel. She stood there, upon a bed of rising flowers, golden and white against the noon sun, gazing out over what had once been wide pastures and homes, but were now made green hillocks rolling over the earth as white-capped waves of the sea in a storm. She reached her hand for Aethelwald, and he came to her, standing upon the bed of flowers, looking over a sight more sorrowful than he had seen before. She knelt and asked of the mound beneath her, "Will you give to me your blessing, Father mighty, that I may become Teloch of your Eolish after your renowned name, second only in all time? A Teloch is named by the will of the Tela, and the people of your birth, the wheel-eyed Aesal, chose any worthy man to be made Teloch. I have come that you anoint me your favorite, that in your eyes I hold that worth which makes men proper kings, that you desire me to guide your people after your death, that I am your chosen candidate to be the Teloch of the Eolish, that I may place myself before the Tela for their choosing. I will wait for your answer. Should you rule against me, I will not rage against you, but will respect your will as the only to ever hold the love of all peoples." The wind was silenced. The sun grew cold. Frost fell upon the grasses. The great stone door below them shut with a sound that rolled like thunder over the graves, and the pale shadow of the ghostly king walked up the mound. Malach king was he. His hemmed cloak trailed behind, vapors falling into the air, a sword great and terrible at his side, a ring upon his finger, a ring upon his arm, a ring upon his brow, his face powerfully made, but of featureless rolling smoke. As he neared Illulean, his cloak was caught in a rising wind. His sword clattered against him, but he walked steady until he stood before her. Then the king of an old people unclasped his cloak and laid it upon her shoulders, unbuckled his belt, and threw his sword to her feet. From his hand he plucked the ring and set it upon her finger. From his arm he took the ring that there rested and set it upon hers. From his head he took the final ring and placed it upon her crown. He then placed his hand over his heart, where it rested briefly before reaching out for hers, a hand which could not touch or feel. The ghostly hand lay upon her heart, a search desperate for the rhythm that rested there, but which could not discover it. Defeated in his effort to hold once more his child, the fallen Teloch fought no more and surrendered. A breath of wind came and he lost his form, vanishing from the mound. The marking of his approval rested with her but a moment longer before they too fell into the winds. Illulean stood, unmoved, and took Aethelwald with her down the slope. But when they stepped off the barrow and onto the earth below, she broke into weeping in his arms. The most wretched curse laid against man is that he loves his fellows. For from the moment of their beginning, his fellows are fated to an end, given freely to reaping death as summer barley to the harvest. It is not only that we are so often made to part with those we love. It is not only that the one man who united these broken people and brought to them real peace should die by their hand. It is not only that a good man be parted from the earth in violence, nor is it proper that a wise Teloch die before he might select one to follow in his place in order that his people continue to live under proper stewardship. It is not just that a father be sundered from his daughter, unable to share in her joy or console her when darkness looms about her. I have many times seen the shade of my father, sitting upon his tomb in a chair proper to his station as he waited for my return. Who else but I see the dead so often? This act of kindness, naming me his true heir, that should have been done many years from now, with all his people about us, that he could clearly show his pride. Instead, I was given his charity, his strength, his fortune, his mercy, his kingdom, in a vast sea of tombs, alone in all the world save for you. The pain would break my heart were you not here beside me. Hold me yet a while longer, and forgive the weight I place on you, if you can. The most tearful part of this journey I feel has passed. From this hour I have the right to bring this land to me and rule as High Teloch. She remained in his arms until there were no tears left in her sorrow, whereupon she steeled herself and broke their embrace. Firmly she took his hand and led him up the hill of Hala, where once walked kings beyond envy and warriors beyond compare. Up the hill of Hala, the sun stepping from her regal seat as the wind recovered her words, and at its top they stood among the ribs of the fallen beast, overgrown with moss, wounds suffered long ago covered. She stood atop the hill, and in a voice which carried over the winds and beneath the earth she called, "Arise, arise, arise, shades and spirits of a long slumbering Teloch, of once mighty Aethelwald. You are called from your grass-covered beds by one given that right by your just Teloch. Malach, king beyond kings, high Teloch, has named me, his daughter Illulean Finnowen, his chosen heir to succeed him in his duty. Long has it been since the day of his passing, yet a successor has not taken his place. The Aethelwald are without a Teloch, and the Eolish are without a high Teloch. See how they wander aimless without. Ioland wept when our king was slain, yet of all its people I alone stood witness to his burial, and to the burial of each of my kin, for blood must bury blood. This I did though I was young. Oaths were sworn at this very hall, oaths proclaimed by the Eolish that only the blood of Malach could sit in his seat or carry his marking. I am his blood, his only blood that still walks the earth. Through me alone does his line continue, and with it the memory of your people. I call upon you now to give your judgment. If you will have me as your Teloch, to guide, to defend the people of Ioland until such time as I fall, arise and restore yourselves to your proper place." As she spoke they came. A heavy mist collected first at the doors of their graves. This then began to form itself, paying heed to neither the sun nor wind. Before she ended, the Aethelwald stood upon the earth once more. Shades properly buried by mortal men remain, for in that act they are remembered. They in their thousands were called for, and they listened to her claim before their tombs. Grey clouds unmoved they stood below her. When her final word was lifted by the wind and carried over Ioland, the spectres fell to their knees together, honoring her words and proclaiming voicelessly their choice. Illulean was made Teloch of the Aethelwald, and by right of blood was high Teloch of the Eolish. The shades fell back to their rest with a breath of wind, and Illulean and Aethelwald stood alone on the hill of Hala. He had seen much which was beyond his knowledge. The world and true power was laid bare before him, and he spoke in awe of her. I was raised in the household of a Teloch. War was my education, and I have held its instruments since I was 6 years of age. Well have I used that knowledge, fighting many battles and slaying many men. I have grown accustomed to it, such that I had forgotten the terror I felt when I first heard the clash of arms and the lamentations of wounded men, or saw death move from one man to the next with terrible speed, stealing from them their lives, or the smell. I remember the pain I felt when I brought that to other men. Yet the more I battled, the more these feelings in me died. Perhaps no emotion can continue in such passion over years, and slowly I could not feel that any more. Battle became nothing more than a labor, and death walked beside me. I thought I had conquered fear, but today I have discovered that I merely learned to walk into battle with it. Walking into the burial mounds, I felt terror return as my heart could not rest steady in my chest. In the mists which swirled about us, I saw a foulness, tortured faces gnashing their teeth as twisted bodies danced in the fog. I could not have walked through it were you not by my side. By your power alone those phantoms were kept at bay. When we walked upon your father's grave, I was pale, for I believed the taboos of our people would bring the mighty king who rested there to curse me. And when the high Teloch of the Eolish walked the mound, I learned my place in this world, for I cannot face them who are not made of flesh and blood. Yet you were named their Teloch. You stood before them and commanded their obedience. You have in you a power beyond my understanding, invincible and wondrous. There is no force in this land which may overthrow you. Not even the sun shines as brightly as you. I am with you until such time as I am no longer desired. Even then I shall be yours. I love you and will to my dying breath. She listened to him relieved. Long hours of labor ended and joys begun, and she spoke in answer. This day was made of the deepest sorrows, the day my father surrendered his place to me that I might continue his labors, the day my fallen people named me to lead them. These are sacred duties, and I will do them with the utmost vigor. But there is no joy in them, not when I labor toward the dreams of those who died before achieving them. This was a day I had long delayed, for fear of their answer, that for all my hours in the lands of the Baith, learning their magic, I could no longer be counted among men, and could not be made Teloch after my father. I waited, but even now could not have come here without you by my side. In you there dwells no true power, but a strength which supported me through this day of mournful meetings. Despair not that I would leave you. I think that I could not stand this air if your voice did not mingle with it. I love you and will not be parted from you. They embraced, complete, joyful the smiles which came over them. As in the light of the other's love they were radiant. For love is the highest of emotion and greater than despair, fear, and hate, greater than joy itself. It is to unite the world material with the spiritual, to see the connection to the world beyond the self, and is perfect. In this height of emotion she spoke to him. The hill of Hala has long been a place of death for me, but from here on it will be the home of my heart. The day's labors are ended, but much remains before we may rest together. Come, let us leave this place and the dead to rest. We will spend the night in the fields and grasses of wide Ioland, though little rest will come to me tonight, for there is much to do before completing my ascension to my father's place. The people of Ioland have named me their Teloch, but the isle itself remains aloof. The wind has carried word of me to all Teloch, but has not yet named me its master. The mountains gaze down upon me. I must make them submit. The waves and waters flow without heeding me, and the grasses know no king. My father had command of them, and so I must too. Thank you for this day. Thank you for your love. They left the hill of Hala and its sorrows behind, and as they left the mists returned, rising over fields as though it had been waiting in the grasses. But again it could not touch them as they walked down the slope, as Illulean held it at bay. And in the smoke he no longer saw phantoms of pain. His gaze fell on her alone. Long was the walk from the hill of Hala to the edge of the barrows. The fog swirled around them, dark and thick. The sun began its fall to the sea as shadows grew long. But their hearts were troubled by no darkness, for they were full. They stepped from beneath the fog just as the last light of the day broke free of the Isle Kelrose to run red across Aeolish fields. Walking into the unclouded air, Illulean turned and bade the wee Lide Sol farewell. And in the smoke they saw a single hand outstretched, struggling against the wind for but a moment, before losing its form and falling away. From the edge of the mortal world they continued not long before resting for the night. No watch was set, but no danger seemed near them. The night wind murmured through the grass. Beneath the dawning sun they awoke, slowly, with the time to enjoy the song of birds. But that day was fated to be one of danger, and neither knew the hunt was closing. The hunter, the form of rage which had long forgotten that he was a man, skirted the edges of the fog which surrounded the hill of Hala. He would not risk meeting with the power which lingered there, searching for the trail he had long followed, one which took him to a battlefield with many dead, but his quarry ran still. He had followed the trail deep into the woods, where he discovered signs of battle. Furious were the tracks. He followed after the victor. There he would find what he had long searched for, though he had forgotten why he desired to hold it. The path broke into two, one made by many feet and the other by a lone pair. His thoughts were bent on discovering the many, but his eyes rested on the one who left them, as a faint taste flitted across his tongue, holding in it the promise of glittering gold. His cancerous heart beat slow in his chest. To choose wrong was to lose the prize for yet more time. Each day it lay beyond his grasp, he fell further into madness. Every moment his vow weighed on him, and the curse upon his heart grew darker. Voices of that madness he carried grew stronger until he could no longer remember himself. He followed the single path as though pulled down it. Doubt ruled his mind, but he followed the path many miles, and soon it was joined by another, a strange step which left in its wake no footprint but flowers. Power seemed to remain in the air. Wary, the hunter followed after. With mounting dread he discovered where he was being led, for the path took him to the fog which lies heavy over the hill of Hala, a land he could not bear the sight of. Ashamed was he who had once feasted there with gracious king, only to return in the van of the great raid, which saw the king killed and the very timbers scoured. At the edge of the mist field he halted. His hate would lead him no further. He felt in it something terrible to him, a power which would not tolerate his presence, more powerful than anything he had felt before, as though one who had only seen moonlight was shown the sun in full splendor. The reaver, breaker, slayer of many men, hunter after false prize, would not go into the fog for the power which had called it. Yet he was feral, no longer a man, and while he could not enter there, he would not forego his vow. By the false power which rested in his heart he began to circle the fog, searching the earth at great speed for signs of his quarry. Night fell, the moon rose, yet on he searched, hoping in his perverse fashion to find him that held the boon. To revenge himself in his faceless foe's blood was a dream near ecstasy. Fruitless he searched through the night, but as the sun climbed above the Isle Teloch he saw the trail. He let free a great cheer, his victory was near. As Illulean and Aethelwald prepared for labors, they felt his approach as a storm over the plains. Birds grew quiet, and the wind stilled to a murmur. Aethelwald hastily donned his armor and prepared his sword, but she fell still with the earth. This was a presence she had long felt, a wincing pain in the world, but only felt from a distance. As she stood, the storm approached her, and she could not bear it, for though she had fought many demons of darkness in the lands beneath the barrows, this was a horror from a day of darkness, the fire of the burning made flesh. She could do naught but tremble at its coming. The hunter swept through the fields on dark wings of malice, and upon discovering the two alone, his face broke into a cruel smile. The ring which he vowed to hold so long ago was near. He felt it. Yet though he longed to begin battle and claim it by his irresistible strength, 2 things gave him pause. First was the unmistakable power which came from the woman as a gale, its pressure unwavering, and its origin the same as the fierce power which guards the graves about the hill of Hala. Second was the man who stood with her, for though the hunter had never seen him before, he bore resemblance to faces which swirled in muddy memory. The hunter paused, searching for a name which he could give to them. His life from that time before the sparrow's poisoned song was distant to him. Long he stood watching them, ere he found the name in his hatred for them. He was one of the 5 sons of the hawk. He stood before Aethelwald, and this brought a doubt to him, for he had long searched for this quarry. Every moment of the hunt Aethelwald learned the power which he carried, wearing the ring longer than any before him. Aethelwald seemed no stranger to war. The luring power of the boon would have sent many men who knew its gift to seek his death. Yet still the boy stood unharmed, made glorious by victory. There was something strange about him also, beyond his battle skill, for it seemed as though there lay something beneath his armor, a mysterious power of which the hunter knew not. Unsure of their nature, the hunter deemed it wise to approach them, as he might discover the true measure of their skill. A long chase has led me here, last child of the hawk, a path of death and blood which I have relished. 4 of your brothers are dead by my arm. I am eager to finish this labor. Only then can I hang my sword and go to my rest. Aethelwald the hatchling, last of a line of fools, raised in the wilds by beasts devoid of skill. Well pleased am I to see that no man has ended you, for your life is mine to take. Come, lay down your life quickly that I might enjoy the rest of this day without your filth in it. Yet who is she that stands beside you? Which fair people did you steal her from? For that is how your ilk gains their brides. And why does she seem as a storm poised to crash from the mountain tops? I can feel some power from where I stand. Does she hold the ring? Else I cannot grasp what she may have stolen that could have made her feel so strange. Speak, boy, before you're dying. I have long been out of this world, recovering from the poison spewed by your master, and wish to know what you have discovered. Aethelwald had long hoped that the otter and sparrow had won their battle and lived in peace in Ioland, and in the long years since their parting he had not heard rumor of the hunter and began to hope for victory. Yet there was none. Darkness stood before him again, and battle drew nigh. He did not fear, however, for he was loved and by it bolstered. The last son of the hawk spoke to the shadow which had long tormented his dreams, as the otter and sparrow would desire of him. Hail, leeching shadow of darker days! I had not thought that in you was the courage to face true men again after long years spent broken in the mountains. How long did you feast upon rats in that desolate place? Did you forget that you once numbered among men, starved shadow? I did not think that you could stand beneath the sun for fear of its brilliance. Your victory comes only at night, as you are a thief after cattle. Can you remember the fire which you set to ravage the rooftops? On that night you took more than lives, but also the soul of the Eolish. We have become husks. You come here seeming no more powerful than those dark days, but I have grown into full manhood and faced battles innumerable. I have grown used to war. I have heard you mock the sparrow, and this I cannot permit, for he laced real power in his songs. I have heard you mock the otter, but he bought me these many years that I might prepare for our battle. I heard you mock the old bear, the warrior Teloch, sword of the Eolish. But remember that he faced you in battle and was victorious. It was these men who raised me, and you should fear their labor. Come, foul stench of greed. I can battle 10 days and 10 nights without weariness, and my blade moves with swiftness. Break yourself upon it. The storm twisted and raged, falling over the fields with its promised fury, and Aethelwald rose to meet it. It was war as he had never seen. The hunter moved with a speed he could not track. His blade fell as a thunderbolt, with a weight that nearly threw Aethelwald off his feet. Yet he stood still, unharmed, for in the final moments, before the dark blade could drink of his blood, his eyes found it, and though reeling and clumsy, he parried. The rain was unrelenting, but the son of kings stood beneath it uncowed, and the bone-hilted sword held the blows, though they were swung with a force which could break mountains. His shield did not splinter, though the hand which battered it could fell an ancient oak with a single strike, and his armor was unmarked by his foe. As the tempest fell upon him, he was not swept away, and though early in their duel his feet staggered under the thundering power of his foe, he soon learned its forms and steadied himself against it, anchoring himself to the earth. Steady and watchful of each strike, the bone-hilted sword was set free from guarding, pressing the attack. Deep it cut the foe who gave no effort to its safety. Rivers of black ichor were opened and soon pooled on the ground. The hunter found himself matched in skill of arms, but did not despair. Oftentimes he had been matched by the sons of the hawk in duels, and each time he was victorious. Though the sword of the boy flew with the speed that matched his own and could contain his, and strike his flesh in the same stroke, the hunter was saved by the black tumour which dwelled upon his heart. He used the same ploy that he slew the others by, letting his thick blood fall freely upon the earth in choked pools. The slime about Aethelwald's feet reached to slow him, to snare him, and the hunter eagerly prepared for that moment when he would fall. His dark blade shied not from drinking the blood of those who were not set in their battle. But Aethelwald did not lose his footing. So well had he learned from the sure-footed otter that the black ichor could not hide the earth from him. Again and again he fell upon the hunter, who waited still for an opportunity which would not come. Such was the martial skill of the last son of the hawk. The ichor ran freely as the bone-hilted sword cut further and further, until his form was as twisted and broken as the black cancer that made his mind. Yet no wound delivered could slay the hunter, or give Aethelwald a chance to escape with Illulean, and so their battle continued. The sweeping storm contained, its thunder wasted, but on it raged. Aethelwald was not wearied. So well had he prepared himself for war beneath the tutelage of Teloch, but was eager to end their fight that Illulean could go to her task. He dropped his shield, and placing his faith in his sword, redoubled his effort. As the dark blade moved in, he countered it with all his strength, knocking it far from its path and laying bare the hunter's form for but a moment. Aethelwald did not wait, driving his sword into the heart of his foe so deep that the bone hilt rested against the hunter's chest. Any other man would have perished 50 times from the wounds Aethelwald had given in this battle, and these the twisting form marked not. But this final blow was dealt the hunter, and he began to fall, staggering to the earth as the curse which lay there struggled against the wound. Yet no wound could break such a curse, and Aethelwald knew that no darkness which could resist the power held by the sparrow could long be held by his sword. He searched for some means by which to hold the hunter in place, but had no rope to bind him, and as he searched his eyes fell upon the dark blade held loosely in ichord hands. Diving, he struck at the hand which held it, and he kicked repeatedly until the hand lay broken as a dead spider beneath him, and the sword rolled to the grass. This he took and drove into the heart of the hunter below his own, pinning him to the earth, before he removed the bone-hilted sword and cleaned the black ichor which clung to it in the grasses. Yet the dark blade of the hunter had so long been at his side that a sickness lay over the metal, and in holding it, it fell upon Aethelwald, a wound not of the body but of the soul, as acid. He ran to Illulean, who stood unmoved from the storm's coming. Yet as he went to her he felt himself weaken, until to breathe was a labor. His feet dragged as though made of lead, and his eyes ready to rest. A man of virtue less than he could not have run long. Aethelwald battled his weariness with the ferocity which lived in his heart, and made the distance to her, falling at her feet. With the last remaining strength of his body, he grabbed the hem of her dress and spoke breathless, as the bellows inside him could draw no air. Love, we are victorious for this moment only, and what time I could give us to flee that twisted ruin is now leaving us. I know not why you stand as stone before this foe, but you must go. Fly, fly from this place, and take with you the ring of good fortune, that it might rest upon the hand meant for it, and beyond the grasp of this beast for all time. I fear I will not come with you, for some affliction of weariness has struck me, and I cannot carry myself further. Go, my love, I will remember you as I dream. His words came to her as a sting of a bee or fly which startles the horse, and her fear was made distant as she looked upon the condition of her love. By his labor the wound lay in ruin, and his presence was no longer as powerful when that curse worked desperately to heal its vessel. Her wits returned to her, and she saw that dark spot lingering upon the soul of her beloved. She took him in her arms, and by the power given to her by her blood, stayed its advance, lighting a fire in his soul to drive away the darkness. He rose, weary and weak, as she spoke. Arise, warrior of skill unmatched. You do dwell in this world one day longer. There is on you a wound, deeper than any given by a blade. It has wounded your very soul, and though I gave some treatment to it, I cannot heal you by driving it from your soul. I know not if I possess such power, but we can no longer tarry here, for the darkness is gathering itself just as you had warned. Come, we must leave this place and continue our labor. Once we are far from the shadow's reach, I will try to remove it from you. Come, warrior of wit and strength, your day is not over. She raised him to his feet and supported him as he staggered. Their journey was first to the Isle Teloch, though first they followed the sun that the hunter would lose them. The journey was long, and with Aethelwald weakened their pace was slow. Each day they walked towards those distant peaks, and each night she dispelled the darkness on his heart. In every moment she supported him as he withered. Yet she was not disheartened, nor was she afraid of the hunter's return. For though Aethelwald could not battle against him, she had dispelled her own fear of it, knowing in her heart that her power was greater. As they went they had not want for food. Illulean brought the flowers to fruit, and grain to harvest, though it was not the season proper for them. If they grew thirsty, she called the rains to them, to drink of its sweet showers. 3 weeks was their journey, their going slow. The old moon died, and a new moon was born, and Aethelwald could walk unsupported again, though he often needed rest, a darkness lingering on him still. The feet of the Isle Teloch are gentle before the true mountains rise to such a height that their ever snow-capped heads watch over the Isle of the Eolish. On these sheer sides their speed slowed to a crawl, and the new moon grew old before they saw their goal, the barrow of Eol, father of the Eolish. Tall though the Isle Meloch stand, the great mountain of Eol is taller, ruling over his children from his distant peak. Yet Illulean knew that the mountain would not mark her from his feet, but for his fealty to her right she must speak where he might listen. So they climbed as their need drove them, though he could not catch his own breath, and she herself was wearied. The mountains surrendered not a step without battle. Only Math, most wise of men and possessing a deep power, had ever reached his summit. The haughty mountain was made for the shade of the first of men, and he did not submit. With each step the wind howled and rocks fell from their place. Only by her power were they kept from being blown from the mountainside or crushed by falling stones. The eagles which there roost cried, and those mountain goats which live where the grass grows sparse bleated. Neither Illulean nor Aethelwald rested in that unhappy place. Yet they were made of bitter iron, not to be defeated by the unhappy king, and 5 days on his slope brought them to his crowned head, where his 4 strong arms, which honor each of the 4 winds, do join together. The wind bit at them, frost in its teeth, but before them, between those great arms, lay a place of calm stone, an altar from time forgotten, a place of subtle power where Math battled for a bride. Illulean supported Aethelwald to the calm stone altar and lay him on its surface before raising herself to her full height, her hair let fly to catch the sun as her breath found the wind and held it captive, and all the land hearkened to her. The power given to her by her great mother swirled about her, sparking light flies of gold and green. In the calmed stone she stood in her full might, as all the resplendent might of her forefathers shone. She was Teloch above Telochs, king beyond kings. The wearied march and painful climb were not enough to break her, for her magic ran deep as the roots to the very center of the earth, a well deeper than any ocean. As she spoke from that powerful place, the isle listened. Had she asked the rocks to break and the mountains to fall to the sea, they would obey. Had she asked the fields to wither and trees to rot, they would obey. And if she demanded it, the beasts and birds would fall in ordered armies upon men, that the race of Eolish would end. Great Father of men, I am come before you with a question, and you will give me answer. You gave to your children this island which the sea rose as a gift, and they spread over it, dividing themselves into many tela before making war upon themselves. Long did they suffer at their own hands, until by fate one was born so mighty that none could withstand him, and they paid him were-gilds. Malach king was he, and his fame was made so great that 1,000 years might weather this land, but his name shall still linger. Yet he perished in treachery as the Eolish fell into despair and war. I come now before you, that you may anoint me, his only blood, to rule after him over the people who live in Ioland. My great father once stood before you, battling for days before a wife was surrendered to him. I will not be delayed. If I be worthy of the place I was born to, proclaim me in this hour, and if I am unworthy, reject me. I will bear it. Father of all, give me your answer. A great bolt of lightning leapt from the sky, though no storm cloud dwelled there, and struck the stones which lay before her, scorching them with its fire as a smell strange filled the hollow, and ill-portent by the Eolish wisdom. Yet where the bolt had struck was revealed a gemstone of deepest red, so large as to cover a man's palm entire. Illulean took it and brought it to Aethelwald, proof of Eol's approval there in her palm. Its hue awed them, and they remained there long, gazing at its splendor, as sparking light flies slowly vanished about them, and the unconquered wind resumed its flying. She spoke in faintest whisper. Of gold I have seen much, as in my youth men of renown and stature brought what they had before my father in homage. Such quantities did I see that it lost its luster, and I have never desired it. Gemstones also, though fewer and smaller in size. I hold in my hand a gem of a size that I had not before imagined, greater than any which the Aeolish hold. That the earth holds in her bounty such beauty is a wonder, but Eol surrendering one such a gem to me is a joy singular, for I am deemed worthy by the land of my father. Long will I cherish this stone, which I named Arel Sioin Isla Okoro, or red stone of the mountain's fealty, of gifts in esteem behind only the ring of Dainthar Dwyn and the love of your heart, which I hold dearest of all. In it I will place but a small part of my power, and you shall wear it over your heart, that the darkness which has latched itself to you cannot do any further harm upon your soul, and be held at bay. The land on which the Aeolish walk has given to me its obeisance, yet the wind, water, and grasses which share our land have not. I will seek them next, and when these labors are completed, we may rest. She placed into the stone her magic, that ever after it held a light of its own, unassailable, which brought the dark color to that of a sunset. She then rested it upon his breast. His labored breathing was eased, and his weariness passed, as though a cooling salve was placed upon him. Satisfied that her magic could remain beside him always, Illulean stood and gave command to Eol, father of mountains and men, and he obeyed. The mountain shook violently, and stone fell from the western arm, until a set of stairs led from the stone altar to the very peak of Ioland. These she took, and standing upon the world, with all the land laid before her, she began to sing as one of the Baith. The wind knew that she sought to bring it to supplication, and though it had twice submitted as she took oaths from others, the capricious wind desired to remain free. As she sang, it snatched the words from her tongue and hid them far away, or else tried to push her right off the mountain top. But in this it fought too late, for Eol held her feet and sent the great birds of the air riding upon the gale to aid her singing. The wind hurried itself against the mountain, but found it immovable, and soon tired of battle. The flighty are not made for war, nor can they find victory. Soon the wind submitted to her meekly, bringing as a weregild 100 eagle feathers, 100 hawk feathers, 100 crow feathers, 100 owl feathers, and the feathers from 100 songbirds. In the air before her these were fashioned together into a cloak, which was laid at her feet. In the light it shimmered, and as the feathers caught the light on their veins, the rainbow danced among them. In the darkness it was black as pitch, allowing its master to move unseen. So close were those feathers that no wind, not even that of a tempest raging over the seas, could reach its wearer. So light that they who wore it paid no mind to its weight, as though it had none. In the cold it was warm, and in the heat it remained cool. Such was the artistry of the wind. Illulean took it carefully in her arms, and returned down the stairs she had made, after known as the mountain path of the dawn flower, or du Isle Illuleana, finding Aethelwald had not moved from his place but rested peacefully in the mountain's shade. Together they marveled over each feather and stitch by which the wind had sewn the cloak, and she spoke proudly. Look, my love, at the cloak which the wind has sewn. Clever is the wind as it sweeps this land, spreading far the seeds of the tender crops. Sharp are its eyes which see every peak and furrow in a single day. It has bowed before me for the nobility of my father and power that dwells in me, granted by the Baith. I loved how it danced before me as we battled. I swear to ever respect its flight. This cloak, given me as a sign of its supplication, I do delight in. Plochchara gui Eolathella I name it, the guise of the free wind. To it I shall sing a song, one of deep truth, and when its wearer has need, they need only name it in full, and their form shall become that of the birds, all colors beneath the sky on our wings. I desire you to wear it while we leave this place, that you do not grow weary walking down this great mountain, but fly freely down its slopes with the wind holding you. I have seen the wind and the mountain. I was proclaimed by my people their Teloch. Only the waters and grasses remain before I am high Teloch true. Let us spend our night in this high place, and at first dawning light go to fulfill our journey. Then there shall be rest for us. They slept above Ioland. The birds were silent, and the goats which dwelled on the mountains ceased bleating. The mountain held them calmly, and the wind only whispered. Beneath Plochchara Gwyn Eolathalia they slept, and the cold did not bite him. On his breast Arel Siloin Isla Okero, and Aethelwald slept untroubled by the darkness which dwelled in him. Dawn crested the peak of Ioland's barrow, and they left the mountain. Aethelwald donned the cloak and named it, turning into a large eagle whose wings were every color. Illulean went down the mountain with speed as Eel aided her going, and every step covered the distance of 5. She reached the mountain's base as the sun fell over the Isle Kelrose. Aethelwald lighted beside her and resumed his form. The night they passed in comfort as the mountains watched over them. In the new day, Aethelwald again flew far above her as she passed the many valleys through the mountains, which reached the foothills as the light was falling. There they passed the night in comfort, watching as the stars danced slowly over the sky. On the 3rd day from the barrow of Eel, they decided to pursue the grasses before the water, and so made their way to the wide fields which cover much of Ioland. But as they went, Illulean began to feel unnerved, as though misfortune prepared to spring upon them. She told Aethelwald to take flight as she searched the well of her power, and found it sparking on her fingertips. Aethelwald searched the hills surrounding and quickly discovered that which she had felt. The hunter stalked towards her, his wounds recovered, and the dark blade in his hand. Aethelwald gave a mighty cry, carried clearly by the obedient wind to warn her, and she prepared for battle, moving to a hilltop. Illulean bade Aethelwald stay in the safety of the wind, for she knew him to be too weak to meet the foe in battle. Then she asked the wind to carry her words to her foe. The wound has healed itself, prepared to bring new pain to its Aeolish body, driven on by lust alone. Come then and discover the salve which the isle has deemed proper for you. I remember feeling you move through this land as an apparition to haunt my dreams. I remember those nights when you vomited your filth upon the green grasses and made ash to choke the rivers. I remember you in the van of the thieves who stole the strength from the Aeolish. When I saw you before me after so many years of terror, I could not move, but stood rooted to my place. By the bravery of the greatest Aeolish warrior were you met and conquered. And when I saw you in that black filth which courses through your veins, I felt my fear die, for I knew that I was greater. Then I did go looking, and found that which I had long sought. Stronger am I this day than when I witnessed your defeat, when I knew you could be broken. You will not find that which you seek this day. I have sent it into the winds beyond your reach. All that awaits you on this day is humiliation and despair. Come and collect your bounty. From her high place she watched for the hunter, and when he came into view, she let fly that waiting magic. Into the earth it dove, waking seeds and calling roots, and through the soil these twisted, without light or water, until reaching the pained earth which bore the weight of the hunter, they burst forth and wrapped themselves around him. Thorns cut his sides as the stronger roots held him, and the weaker roots climbed ever higher to deny him his arms. The hunter had not felt their coming, and so was quickly bound by them. But he was made strong by the curse ill placed upon his heart, and with hacking sword cut away at these thorns, roots, and vines which held him. Swift was he, and Illulean was made to call further seeds to her aid. Again was the hunter held fast by them, as all the fury which lay in his eyes was hidden from the sun. Yet this again gave only short respite. He bit and scratched at his chains. By the strength of his hand his sword began to cut him loose. As he slowly came free of them, an eagerness came to him, thinking that he had well weathered whatever strangeness belonged to his foe, and now she would be made to weather him. A smile stole over his ruined face as he imagined her drawing her last breath, and her soul enthralled on his blackened heart. Yet if Illulean was surprised to see her foe unconquered by the chains she set upon him, he was surprised that she had in her more than what she had set against him. She uttered but a word, and the hills opened as the roots pulled down through them, the hunter falling until the hills settled again, his head alone above the earth. Not defeated was he, but held tight by root, vine, and soil. As he struggled against them, they pressed harder. Beneath the earth and away from the sun they are stronger. Not defeated, but Illulean had such victory as she could secure quickly. Knowing there was not much time before he from his prison broke, she ran to the wide fields of Ioland and beyond his view. From the sky came Aethelwald, and together they ran far through the fields of Ioland, a week, until in the lands of the Unsalal they finally rested. There she decided upon calling the grasses, and gained the right to rule over them. She stood among them a full day and a full night, beneath the dawning and dying sun, beneath the lighting and dimming of the moon. No word left her lips, as the grasses did not but sway in the breeze. At dawn on the second day she spoke to them. How beautiful you are, who have often comforted me as I lay ragged after my battles beneath the mounds. I have loved you for your aid. It is my singular delight to discover that you do rise from the soil where I do step in celebration of my coming. Your flowering was ever my joy. When I call for succor from you, it swiftly arrives. When I battled that diseased beast which does ever follow after, you were my sword, bitter the blade which cut him. My blood was fated to rule this land, and you knelt to the Teloch before me. Yet though we battle together and you rejoice in my every footfall in this world, you do remain separate from me, and have not named me your Teloch. The mountains are stubborn, the wind capricious, but the grasses hold themselves to be free of any but their own. Come to me, Proclaim my name as you have proclaimed my father's, that I may rejoice in you as you have rejoiced in me. Do not withhold yourselves from me. For from that time when I became alone in this world, your color was my only pleasure. Should you turn away from me, my heart shall ache, and be made to leave Ioland for all time, for shame of your rejection. She remained in the grasses for yet a while longer, before she walked from the field and into the waiting arms of Aethelwald. As she stepped out of the untamed grasses, the green sea at once knelt toward her, though the wind was silent, and from the earth came twisting vines, falling over themselves again and again in strange beating, until those stems which came from the earth withered and died, but their creation remained, a dagger made of grass. Illulean took this with all reverence, and when she held it in her hands, the grasses lifted themselves and resumed their swaying. Then she held it before them as she spoke. I stood in the grasses until they felt I was one of their number, as I came to learn why they refused to name me their Teloch when they so exalted me and fought beside me in my battle. They were afraid that when I was made Teloch, that I would be unkind to them and force labors unnatural upon them, that they could not be both old friend and loyal servant, rendering me such service as they had always given, yet withholding from me. I spoke to them, and this eased their worry. They have named me their Teloch, and given to me this grass blade, strong as any iron. It shall be named Mokrin Kolol, which is the blade from grass. Its edge shall need no whetstone to hone it. 100 ages of man may pass over the sky, but its sharpness will remain. The dagger is itself living, and when the foe is cut, its vines and thorns shall enter the foeman's body and wound further. Such is the love which the green grass carries for me. This I will give to you, that in your arms lie another weapon for war. Well may you wield it. We have struggled through the mountains and stood unbent before the raging of the wind, and the grasses of We have struggled through the mountains and stood unbent before the raging of the wind, and the grasses of this wide land do pay us homage. That which remains is but the waters which nourish this land, the sweet streams and deep lakes from which our people raise their crops and sate their thirst. All waters are children of the great and unloving sea, that in before times did try so zealously to break the isle of Ioland and drown his children in her bitter waves. And they give great honors to her, for it is the sea where all rivers end. Part of Ioland, yet born of a hostile temper. A challenge it shall be before the waters bow before me. Our rest is near at hand, but there is one labor remaining. Do not weary now. Aethelwald placed her gift upon his belt, as together they planned their journey to the mouth of the Aglach Ulmo, strongest of the rivers of that land, and which enters the Bay of Cassellis, where the sea watches close the shores of Ioland, and beneath the short walls of Teldrim, where exiled Aeolish fishermen leave safe shore in their coracles. As they journeyed watchful of any sign of the hunter, Aethelwald found cause for a question, and asked of Illulean, Love, these labors through Ioland have shown me more wonders than I have ever thought I would see in my life. The world which I had been born into was full of stories of great warriors and fell beasts, but these seemed to belong to a life beyond the ordinary days of warriors which I saw. Yet something does bother my heart. We are made to wander the mountains and valley, the fields and river, that they might make you high Teloch, your reign over the peoples of this land to begin. No such stories are there of your father seeking their approval. He knew not how to speak to the stone or calm the wind. The grasses blew indifferent through his fingers. Why then must we quest for these things, when the first true high Teloch in all time had no need for them? Is this truly the path to placing you in your rightful seat? Illulean listened to him patiently, and when he had finished, she let fly the softest of laughs, without snide malice in its tinkling. As she held him close, they walked on. She gave her reply in good cheer. Wise are you, Aethelwald, to question the destination of your feet. I had begun to wonder if your love for me had made you ignorant of struggle and obedient to command. Neither is a trait one should strive to possess. This question has crossed my mind also, though quickly I learned the answer. My father did not go to the mountains, or wind, or grasses, or water. He was ignorant of their will, yet still they obeyed him. He left the hill of Hala with the war bands of the Wee-Lide Saul and the Amach Es to bring Ioland into his power, and so swiftly did he move that within the summer he was victorious. The mountains trembled at his swiftness, the wind marveled his every breath, the grasses yielded beneath his footsteps, and the waters were silent at his might. They dared not refuse him when he stood above all others. And just as each Aeolish Tella swore the oaths of obedience before his mead bench, so too did the mountains, wind, grasses, and waters swear. Yet I had not this speed. From the time of my birth they were aware of me. Though I had not died in the fire of the burning, I lay in hiding, learning myself, and they grew distant from the high Teloch, just as the Tella. Men are easier to befriend than mountains, and as my father named me his heir, my people gladly proclaimed me high Teloch. This is enough for men, but the others must be returned to the power, else my reign will be short. That is why we are made to journey over Ioland. Take heart, for our labor is near its ending. The leagues fell away as once more they crossed Ioland toward the mouth of Aglach Ulmo. They reached the shores of Aglach Salam and followed it until it breaks from its bounds and rushes to the sea. Along the noisy banks they walked until they came to the tree bridge, which in a time long past she raised over Aglach Ulmo for Elis, now well used by men to pass over tumbling waters. The water below clean since the breaking. Here they crossed the river as Illulean held tight the bridge's rail, an old memory slipping through her fingers. And when they stood upon the opposite, she wept. Aethelwald gave her what comfort he could, but knew not what troubled her, holding her until her sorrows passed, and she told him, "Forgive my weeping. It is for storms long past. I made this tree burst from the earth and grow with speed and strength over the tumbling Aglach Ulmo, its branches twisting together to form a guiding hold that none would fall from into the river below. This bridge is used today by the Aeolish to travel, but I made it for one man alone, the second son of the hawk, Elis. It was he who found me battling amidst the barrows, as demons from the deep earth chased me to the world. He assisted my victory and saw I came safely to the bed above my father's tomb, where I can truly rest peacefully. He cared for me when I had gone beyond my strength, and waited at my side until I had recovered. A good man was he. He refused to leave me there, and promised me a safe home among your people, to live once more in the lands of my father. I could not go with him, for the law of my great mother, the law I broke to stand beside you. He left me, and went to prepare the isle for my coming, but saw the churning river and ran to battle. He was met with naught but death in the hands of the hunter, his corpse set aside for special humiliation. I took his form, so small in death, from the reach of the beast, and buried it beneath the water that rushes here. Crossing this place once more has brought back to me my sorrow for his fate, and that kindness which he had given me. Aethelwald listened and wept, and when she finished he held her close and whispered to her. Those days of wrath, when all the island marched under arms and blood flowed free, those days were ones of horror for me. So slowly came the deaths of the men who I had long watched feast and tell stories upon the mead bench. Among them my father and brothers dear. The chaos was such that I did not learn the manner of the deaths of Edruan and Emmerich for many years, and the fate of Ellis was unknown to any man. No great warrior was he, but still I held a faint hope that he had survived the suffering of that time and was living still. A faint hope, but one which I held close to my heart. To hear of his death is to lay down that hope, though not in despair, for he is properly laid to his resting place, a gift given to few these days. A life lost so long ago is not to be so mourned, but remembered for its good works. I will sit beside you as I remember my good brother, but I will weep no more for him, for his works are too great for any tears, and when you are ready we shall continue our journey. They remained there embraced for a time, and when the dark clouds of loss had passed over her, they stood and followed the river to the sea. At its mouth the roaring water batters its way into the Bay of Cassellis, over sharp rocks and churning rapids. In a booming voice are proclaimed broken and half-formed words which sputter from the mouth of Aglach Ulmo, and where others wear a serene blue, he is foaming white. Upon his eastern shoulders is a city of exiles and fishermen, Tel Drim. A wooden palisade guards it upon all sides but that which faces the river, for it is too turbulent for any vessel of men. As Illulean prepared to venture into the waves to demand of the waters, Aethelwald looked to the city, surprised by its quiet. No man was seen, and no smoke curled in the wind. No dogs in their streets or fowl on their rooftops. Something sinister lay in Tel Drim. Illulean went into the raging waters, and they fell still for her, as a skilled warrior holding his strength in reserve for his next challenger, waiting until she stood in the middle of the river before unleashing its force upon her. Mighty was the torrent which thundered toward her, falling over itself in a rush to dash her against the stones. So fiercely did the water desire to remain aloof. Yet when, with its great haste, the raging river reached her, it found her rooted to the earth, immovable despite the great waves brought against her. It surged and swelled, battered and broke, it drove and drowned. By none of its power could it harm or remove her. Aglach Ulmo retreated and charged thrice, but she remained. The river withheld all its water, bringing the course to run dry, as beyond a dammed river grew into a lake of wrath, and when a flood was built, it was let fly. Stones were crushed, and trees torn from their roots. The walls of Tel Drim buckled. All the debris from the river bed or bank was thrown against Illulean. But when the flood waters receded, and all living things gazed at the ruin in shock, she stood proudly, her arms held close, a flat stone. She waded from the river to Aethelwald standing beside the shore, who had escaped the torrent by the grace of her gifts. Together they admired the flat stone, circular and perfect, studded with pearls about the edge, a strap made of woven weeds. This was the water's gift to Illulean, joy in her voice as she spoke. Witness here the final gift which Ioland will give to us, a shield made of hardest river rock, yet light that it does not weary its wearer, held fast to their arm with those few plants which grow beneath the waves, fashioned together so tightly that it is stronger than any rope or leather, pearls about its edge to catch the light and hold a foe's eye, a fine gift given by one who so struggled against fate, but realized that in their thrashing lay no victory, only humiliation, and so remembered old oaths sworn, and proclaimed me and my blood High Teloch of the Eolish. I name this good gift Yearn which is the eye of the water. Rejoice, my love, for our journey has reached its ending, and I am now until my dying made High Teloch of Ioland, to rule true and justly as the former had. My labors shall be many, but they shall not weigh on me, for I was given the Arel Siloin Isla Okoro, the Plochchara Gwyn Eolathalia, the Mokrin Kolol, and the Yearn and that greatest gift, which I cherish beyond all others, Aethelwald, fifth son of the Hawk, who has remained at my side through these long days. Dark may be the skies, and ash rain from it, but I will not be parted from him. Aethelwald, we are victorious, and I have been given power to uphold the peace of Malach for a time. The earth carries me, the wind hearkens to me, the grasses rejoice with me, the rivers sustain me. Yet there is one thing which I do desire, and perhaps in holding so much greed has made me want yet more, and yet it is beyond my station to ask, and with much given me I am to rest contented in the shadow of my labor, but I will ask for it. I desire that you and I be wed, to live paired as husband and wife until our bodies are returned to the earth. I could not have come so far without you, nor could I have faced the terror of my years alone, and I would not stand on this isle. From dusking forests in another world you called me to my home, and in the many hours that I have watched you I have come to know the goodness of your heart. I would not now be parted from you, not unless you yourself desired it, but only then would I leave you, broken. Please grant me this request, one which I make not as High Teloch, but as a heart which you hold captive. Be merciful, great captain of men. Aethelwald answered with a smile. Two hearts hold the other in chains. It is time they were set free to rejoice in a love complete. You speak for the Weleide all, while I speak for but a part of the Unkoltabar. Yet they do accept your proposals with gladness, having long desired to join their blood to yours. Nor could they refuse a just High Teloch. What remains is but the negotiation of the bride price, and though the Eolish do pay the house of the bride great prizes, my poor house has little to give them, as our wealth is little, and it is proper for the High Teloch, who holds a great power unequaled in all time, to give to those who have naught to give. The price which we ask are two requests of you, and should you find these agreeable, then immediately do we give consent to wed Illulean to Aethelwald. The first we ask is this, that the solemn vows be sworn before the monks of the good God who do dwell upon Scarmeline, for they are good holy men, though foreign to our shores, and on that distant isle there will be time to rest from your long journey, far from harm. To learn from them is a great honor, and they can show us truths from beyond the Green Isle. Their grace will guide your reign over Ioland by their temperance, for your companion is well versed in war, but not in ruling. Indeed, he knows little of how to make a just Teloch. The second request is that you begin to use your place as High Teloch of the Eolish immediately, for your people do need you. Today and now they suffer without you, and there, within the guard of walls, lay some of them. I know not what pain has reduced them to their silence, but I would discover its cause. We must let Ioland know that the High Teloch has returned, eager to give justice back to the Eolish people. Would you please aid your love and see what had caused lives to fall still? This is the wedding price to be paid as the Unkoltabar desire. High Teloch of the mountains and seas, of beasts and men, are these conditions a price which you can pay? Illulean listened to him name the bride price, and when he finished, she solemnly replied, The Unkoltabar name a fair price for their favorite son, and indeed less than his worth. He is a man alone in all time. Eagerly did I pursue him. I do vow that he and I shall both discover the cause of suffering in Teldrim before we are joined together, and our wedding will be held before the holy monks of the good God at their refuge upon Scarmeline. This shall be done, I give my word. They embraced, bound together they plighted troth, and when joy was fulfilled they prepared themselves for Teldrim. Aethelwald held the 4 boons of Ioland, as Illulean calmed Aglach Ulmo, until it flowed so sluggishly it seemed still. They waded across and into Teldrim, where nothing stirred. Aethelwald walked before her, that his blade and shield might catch sudden violence. He went into a house which stood near the bank, there discovering men weak and wounded, who trembled in fear at his coming. Pitying them, Aethelwald called for Illulean, and asked the men what had caused their suffering, and they replied that a great raid had hit their home a month before. Daona warriors, dark and cruel, red beasts of hate painted on their shields, coming from the fields which lay beyond the walls on a moonless night. Alarm was raised among the men of Teldrim, and they prepared for battle, secure in victory behind their walls, arms well readied for war. At foes' heads stood a mad figure of blind rage. Their captain in dark furs gave order to assault the gate when they had gathered. Against the gate a ram was brought, swifter than the men of Teldrim could react, and it was sundered from the wall. Cruel axes flashed by firelight, as no defense of spear could stem the tide. They were broken and chained together, their women humiliated, while the men were beaten, the children taken. None were left untouched by the cruel Daona, and weeks they were made to endure the suffering. Yet then the seasons changed, and Svoren Blackfingers, king of the Reavers, ordered a return to Daona before the winds were set against them. Aboard their long ships the children were taken, and the women they most desired, alongside what gold they could find, for above all else the Daona value its luster, and left Eolish shores. Yet before his ships had vanished over the waves, he proclaimed loudly that he found the Eolish to be a weak people, with many riches to plunder, and this he would tell his countrymen, and they would return when the winds died. Those that remained were broken and lay languishing, starving in their homes. Illulean and Aethelwald listened, and Aethelwald cursed the name of their captain Svoren Blackfingers, regretting the mercy he had shown him. Illulean listened in tears, and set her heart against the Daona for all time. She asked her love to carry those he found into the open air, and when they were gathered, she gave order to the grasses. Sprouts burst forth, which quickly turned to trees full grown, laden with their fruits, though it was not their season, and grain grew beside them. As they ate, they felt their wounds heal and their pains leave them. She then called the water to fill their thirst, and as they drank they felt their energy return to them. While they recovered themselves, she ordered the earth, and it pulled away from the walls, that they became unassailable. To the wind she whispered words which no man knows, but the wind carried them far beyond the shores of Ioland, into the swirling sea beyond. As she tended to the town of Teldrim, she felt the darkness approaching, as rumor of him she felt in the tremors of the earth. But she still wove her power for Teldrim, and asked Aethelwald to hold the darkness for a time. Aethelwald took the many gifts of Illulean and went through the broken gate to face the hunter. Near madness came the hunter, his form near forgotten as darkness leaked from him. He gnashed his teeth and bit his tongue. Ichor fell from his mouth. He tore at his skin as though some itch consumed his flesh. His right hand held the dark blade sword and hacked and slashed at the air about him. No longer was there memory, only desire, as the pain of the black mark upon his heart tortured him with every beat. Thwarted at many turns from holding that which he had chained his mind to, he was reduced to a howling hell. He drew near Teldrim, ruin in his wake, as the poisoned ichor burned all it touched. Dragged to that place he knew not why, his feet had chosen the course. But when he saw Aethelwald before him, he let loose a scream of rage that the island desired to break and fall into the sea, stayed only by the hand of its high Teloch. Aethelwald stood prepared to weather him. Upon his breast was the Arel Sioin Ila Okoro, which kept at bay any darkness which would claim his heart. His back guarded by the Plochchara Gwyn Eolethalia, which shimmered in the light. In his hand was the Mokrin Kolol, which though short promised great suffering to the foe wounded by it. In his other was the Aileron Agla'a, which by its brightness caught the eye of the hunter and did not surrender it. So stood the warrior of the wilds against the warrior of the curse. At the roar of the hunter battle was joined, and the dark blade clashed against Aethelwald's shield, a blow delivered so quickly and powerfully that his feet were forced back and he stumbled. Terrible was the madness of the hunter. In battles before, his feet had not lost their footing, and at that sight a horrible cry of delight left the beast, thinking that it had grown more powerful as it abandoned itself, and was now nearer the ring than at any past time. Aethelwald, reeling, saw that his foe had gained much in speed and strength, but the captain also saw that he was less skilled in arms than before, placing his hope in strength. He quickly named his cloak and took to the skies, as the shocked hunter raged below, and wheeling he dove upon him, returning to his own form and driving his shield into the hunter, knocking him to the ground. Filth coated the earth as his foe scrambled to his feet, but Aethelwald pressed not his advantage, knowing to bide his time for his strike. The hunter stood once more. Gathering his strength, he charged again. With each wild swing he struck the shield, which Aethelwald placed always in the blade's path. The force with which the hunter struck he now knew, never again sent stumbling by a blow. 15 times his foe struck. Each blow rang out over Ioland as though 100 blacksmiths beat 100 anvils. The strength behind each blow was enough to fell an ox, but Aethelwald stood unscathed. Not once did his dagger reach for the foe, remaining in reserve for the strike. In the fields before Teldrim their battle raged. The growing fury of the beast scorched the earth as though the night sky had descended and swallowed whole what it touched. As before the darkness danced the last light of day, ever glowing and aloof. The cloak caught the light and the shield held it, drawing the beast's eye and leading strikes astray, as Aethelwald, careful, led their battle ever to new ground, that the ichor which fell from the hunter could not snare his feet as they danced. His feet were made sure-footed by the hunter, trained over river rocks covered by slime, so that dried they remained rooted to his place, and when he learned the strength with which his foe struck, he never again lost his footing. His skill in war was made by the warrior Teloch, and never did he lose sight of the dark blade, or any of the darkness which pooled before him. No blow by blade or hand came unmarked or unblocked, as he waited for his chance. His mind was made sharp by the wisdom which dwelled in the sparrow, and he kept patient, while his foe's wrath only grew. He was a true warrior, and with the gifts of Illulean darkness was outmatched. Again he named the cloak and took to the air, flying high above the field and diving against his foe. But the hunter was not surprised any more by this power, preparing to strike as he came near. Aethelwald, seeing this, veered from his course with a swiftness which his foe did not understand, landing in the clean earth behind the hunter, again in his natural form. Before the beast could turn to face him, he struck, cutting clean across the back of the leg. The blade of thorns heeded no armor as it cut, and as Aethelwald watched, he saw the blade shoot its thorns into the darkness. Not wasting his advantage admiring the wound, he named the cloak again and flew from the hunter to the gate of Teldrim, where he watched the foe. Of all the cries which the hunter let haunt the air of Ioland that day, that which left him as he was cut was the worst. His scream of pain was the empty howl of the fiend itself. All living things which heard it wished for a swift ending, and would have withered away had Illulean not stayed them. He writhed and tore at his chest as the vines which the Mokrin Kolol delivers with each cut spread through his body, through his veins, wounding every part of his body. He howled and spasmed, twisted and squirmed upon the earth. The dark ichor which was his blood flowed from him and poisoned the earth until Illulean wept from the pain. Clods he tore from the earth and through. His own skin he tore from his body in search of the cause of his pain. Aethelwald began to pity the creature which had caused him so much sorrow, but he remembered the mercy he had shown to the Daona captain, and he hardened himself against the thrashing beast. Illulean finished caring for Teldrim and joined Aethelwald atop the walls, where together they viewed the writhing hunter in shock, for neither had imagined the Mokrin Kolol to be so cruel. As it cut through the body of the hunter, the souls which were captured by the curse upon his heart did labor to repair their vessel. His wounds cut and healed endlessly as he choked in the ichor. Illulean spoke. "This is a sad sight, an evil unable to die and driven further into its own madness. Such is the remains of men's anger. The dying cannot last forever. Either he will let go his lust and perish, or he will abandon himself to it and pull the vines from his veins. But we should not stay here. We cannot end his suffering, not by any power we now possess. And so it is best we go to the mountain which rises from the sea, Scarmeline, and there rest for our next battle with him. I will cover him with earth to deaden the sound of his screams, and there he will either rise once more or perish. The gate to Teldrim I shall seal by my magic, that ever after only those who are permitted shall pass into the city. The walls I shall make living wood. Let us go, taking a ship from the harbor to sail there. The sea remains beyond my power to rule, and give ourselves one happy day before we repair the Green Isle." They left the walls, and before the gate Illulean called out, and trees grew there, twisting among themselves and the wall until a mighty forest there seemed. She whispered command to the new trees, and in a moment they fashioned themselves into a living wall of great ramparts and a mighty gate. Thus she left Teldrim. She went to where the hunter thrashed and covered him beneath a mound, silencing his screams. Then together to the docks, where Illulean and Aethelwald took a boat and left Ioland for Scarmeline, holding each other close as they sailed over the sea. End. Book 9. The Ring of Dame Tharduin was written and performed by Michael Frutig. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the project on Patreon. Supporters get text files of each chapter, as well as access to Q&A posts, other writing projects, such as flash fiction and chapters of other works. Go to patreon.com/michaelfrutig for more. patreon.com/MICHAELFRUTIG. Thank you.